add value to your business, or do you want to just be this administrative person?
And often, if you look at your talent team and the caliber of talent in your company, they correlate.
You could hire the best person for the job if they were in your candidate pool.
All these individual employees, one by one, together, their voices all come together to articulate the culture of the company.
This is hiring.
Hiring on all cylinders.
Hello again, recruiting, talent, and HR pros. Rob Stevenson here once more for Hiring on All Cylinders. Thank you for joining me again. I am situated once more in the most salubrious confines of Fidelity headquarters here in Boston, Massachusetts for day 2 of the Future Workplace Network meeting, and I aim to carry on as I started out with more amazing guests today, the first of whom is one Paul Fama. Paul is the global learning leader over at GE. He's also served in all different roles throughout their human resources arm as a global talent leader, senior HR manager. Paul, so great to meet you. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, great to be here today. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were on a panel yesterday, correct?
I was. We had a great group of people talking about the future of talent development, the future of learning, specifically digital learning. A lot going on in that space. There isn't anything that's not a moving part in digital learning these days.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be the theme of this meetup, at least. Everyone's sort of talking about learning, and it's kind of new to me. I'm somewhat bashful to admit that it was not really something I was thinking a lot about, but it's more and more in the minds of recruitment teams and talent teams in terms of retention and making sure they develop their own employees, right?
Sure. I mean, it used to be digital learning was the stepchild to the whole learning program, and now I think it's moving to the front burner. I think it's going to be the most exciting place to innovate. You know, we at GE have been doing learning since 1956 at our training center. Our face-to-face courses, you know, have been something that's been a staple of what we do. We think we do it pretty well, but you know, these days with a global workforce, you can't be everywhere that the workers are. You have to bring the learning to them, and these global platforms have a great ability to democratize learning and bring learning to where people are to get them productive as quickly as possible.
Definitely. So this I stole directly from your LinkedIn bio. Ensure learning strategy is aligned and integrated with global talent pipeline needs. Sure. So what does that mean when you think about global talent pipeline? You're talking about like high on the funnel, like bringing people into the organization, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And we've done it a number of ways. For example, becoming a digital industrial company, all of a sudden we have people from the digital industry we've never had before. Not only how do you recruit them, but how do you bring them into the GE culture? And our whole learning environment is based on us bringing people up to speed that way. But it's also, we've done some acquisitions recently, in case you haven't seen, companies like Alstom, 60,000 plus people. We just announced an acquisition of Baker Hughes, another 30,000 people. So we have potentially over 100,000 new people coming into General Electric Company within a very short period of time, and learning plays a big role in that.
It's mostly in terms of focusing on their onboarding and kind of getting them up to speed with...
Well, onboarding for us is something that we hope takes place locally. But the big question is, you know, who is GE after you add 100,000 people from different parts of the organization? And we think we have a culture we'd like to share with them, but we also want them to share their culture with us. And that blending becomes the interesting conversation that you have either one-on-one in small groups or in large classes.
So what have you noticed personally in terms of those like individual conversations?
It's getting to know each other. It's building a relationship. And, you know, whether, you know, you do it in person, but what we're trying to do now, getting back to your question about what's new in the digital learning space, is how do you have those dialogues now virtually? How do you get people to interact that intimately and build that relationship so they feel like they've had an experience together, not just shared facts?
So then if you're a recruiter and you're recruiting for a huge company like GE, that's so important because if they leave, then you've still got that role to fill. So what role can they play in I guess advancing learning or just making sure that their incoming talent
Well, anybody who comes to a company and anybody who's in a company, what's most on their mind from their perspective is they want to be developed. They want to learn. They want to grow their careers. And learning plays a huge, role in that. So if a recruiter can't make any promises about what it's like to learn and grow in a place, it's just a job.
Right.
And I think that's one of the pleasant surprises that people coming into GE from, whether it's the digital space or from an acquisition, find. They find a place like Crotonville. They find places around the world where we convene people and have these meetings. They find a new digital platform which to learn, and they find a culture where leaders learn and leaders teach leaders. And I think that's an attractive proposition.
Definitely. I'm glad you mentioned Crotonville, because that's kind of sort of the GE hub for HR innovation,
Right.
correct?
Right. And for learning and for the culture. But we also like to think that Crotonville's not just a place, but it's the whole value proposition around learning. And if we only keep it, in New York, it's not going to be enough. We have to
Right.
bring the concept of Crotonville around the world.
Definitely. So you mentioned that GE's been doing learning since the 50s.
Right.
Yet it's this sort of
I feel
global
very
learning.
old when you say that. I
Well,
wasn't there
You
in
haven't
the 50s.
personally been doing it since the 50s. But even though they've been doing this for so long, learning and global learning and digital learning is sort of an emerging trend. So is GE just sort of doubling down on the learning aspect and development aspect, or is this kind of just the natural evolution of something that they've already been doing?
No, listen, we have a history investing in up and down cycles. During our most difficult financial times in 2008, 2009, we doubled down in Crotonville and reimagined Crotonville and leadership. We're doubling down again in terms of this digital platform and understanding how important culture is to make sure that GE as a company, as it transforms into this digital industrial company, moves forward. Moving here, I could see the new GE facility from these Fidelity offices today, and it brings a promise that we haven't seen before. Another transformation. And if you look at the number of transformations GE's had since 1956, it's a little bit mind-boggling.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to how to integrate, say you make an acquisition of 60,000 people, is that mostly a culture-based sort of integration you're interested in making? Is there also like a talent, like a reskilling specific gap? Is it all of it? What's the big play there?
Well, I mean, the big play for HR, talent recruitment, and the learning group is to understand the needs of those employees. We hopefully acquire companies that have lots of value. As I've experienced and talked to the people from the acquisitions, there's a ton of expertise out there, and they want to learn about how to be successful in GE, and we have to help them connect the dots. So a series of roundtables. We start inviting them to some of our learning sessions. They get to know the culture, and we get to know them. And with that sharing, I think we become a stronger company.
I love it. Paul, this has been magnificent. I could keep picking your brain all day, but I'll let you carry on living your life and being involved in this meetup. This has been great. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much.